Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Soberful podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how, when someone is in active addiction, how that impacts the people around them, the people they come into contact with. So, imagine being a young woman who gets involved with an older man who dazzles her. I know I didn't make great choices when I was in my 20s, and I really didn't make good choices about the men I dated. I dated a lot of men in active addiction. Imagine that you get pregnant by that man, and despite promising that he would stand by you, he in fact abandons you and denies paternity. Imagine that man gets sober, remarries, and his whole family pretends that you and your child don't exist. And imagine that that man is the son of the most powerful man on earth. Today, we're going to hear Lunden Roberts' story. Lunden is the mother of a little girl called Navy and whose father is Hunter Biden. Lunden has written a book called Out of the Shadows. Welcome to the show, Lunden.
Thank you.
Now, I believe you're in Arkansas, is that correct?
I am.
Yeah.
I am in Arkansas.
So you're just above me. I'm in Alabama. You can tell by my accent.
Okay. Yeah, I could.
I say that all the time. I'm from Alabama, and people are like, what?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one.
I'm British, and I now live in the Deep South. And I just want to say, I love it here, and I find Southerners to be the friendliest and loveliest people.
Well, good. Good. I think so too.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. So, okay, where do we start? Let's start with, I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this are fairly aware of a lot of this story, but we want to get your side of things. So paint the picture. You're in your early 20s, you go to Washington, D.C. How do you meet Hunter?
I actually met Hunter at his consultant firm. And, I say it's like an after party, but it's not a party. It's been out drinking, and we were actually in DuPont Circle, and I was invited by a friend who had been invited there. And then I meet him, and it's at the House of Sweden, the Swedish embassy. It's on the waterfront right there in Georgetown, and there's this beautiful view of like the Kennedy Center and the Watergate and everything. It's the penthouse, so it's got the balcony, and it's all lit up. It's a beautiful place. And Hunter was tucked in the back, while most people I talk about in DC was, going to a big city like that was the first time I'd ever even seen drugs and anything like that. It's like there's a lot of beer and stuff here, moonshine maybe here in Arkansas, but I'd never actually seen like cocaine in real life or anything like that until I moved to DC. And going out and clubbing and partying and stuff, you see a lot of that. Like people will go out and they'll party, and then they'll go to the bathroom and take a bump and then come back out, and it became like a kind of a norm in DC. But I talk about how Hunter's demons kept him in the back room. And, they had this demon on his back when I first met him. And I'll never forget the first time I saw him. He had the most beautiful blue-gray eyes. And, he's very genuine and sincere, hey, how are you? And gives me a hug and acts like he's known me forever. And, he just engages with people so well and draws people to him. And there's all this paraphernalia there on the desk that he's been very candid about doing, with vodka, Tito's being his vodka of choice, and all this cocaine on the table and the crack cocaine. And I should have ran, but like I instantly empathized, and I talk about how William Shakespeare said the eyes are the window to the soul. And immediately, I saw these beautiful eyes, but they were so complex. Like you could tell like he was truly suffering from something. And then, you see all this out there, and you wouldn't think of him as he can sit there and hold this intellectual conversation. And, with the amounts of drugs and alcohol that he's consuming that night, you wouldn't think that he would have been able to, but he was sitting here, drawing me in. And, I don't think people realize that. They see these pictures and stuff that were released, and they make a mockery of what's been released from the laptop and Hunter's addiction, and when he was in such a dark place at that time. But Hunter was a human. And I've had many people who've read the book have messaged me in their, in the first few chapters when I'm talking about my, meeting Hunter and in that relationship. And him being in that dark place, but loving him and falling in love with him despite it. And I've had friends message me and they're like, I never in the world would have thought that I'd be up till 2 a.m. falling in love with Hunter Biden. Like it humanizes him. It's who he was. And he's been very candid about that addiction and that dark place that he was in. But people just see those photos that were released and they don't see the human behind that.
I just want to, okay, so you were about 25. How old was he?
47, 48.
Okay. And so you were at like a corporate party and there were drugs about? Like that was normal?
It wasn't really a party. There was just a few people there
Right.
talking and drinking and stuff. So it wasn't like a whole bunch of people there and like loud music. There was some music playing, but it was like softer music.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Johnny Cash, but it wasn't like a loud college party.
Okay. Okay. So what was your relationship like at the beginning?
Fun, adventurous. And I saw it as something new. I'm staying in these nice luxurious hotels with him. I'm learning new things. You always learn something new. Like he would talk to you and give advice, and like he was somebody that he was a charmer. And he's somebody
They usually are.
I always said, Hunter could walk into a room of MAGA supporters and they may hate him and want to kill him when he walks in. And by the time he leaves, they may not vote for his father, but they'll like him. And he has that sort of charm about him.
Yeah.
And it's all great when things are great, but with addiction, when things are great, but when things aren't, things are really bad. And there's a chapter in the book where I talk about one night, he found me and he was a different Hunter than the Hunter that I'd known, the high or drunk Hunter. Everything he had consumed apparently way too much or something that I don't know what, but he found his way to me that night. And I took care of him the entire night and held him while I thought that I thought that he was going to overdose. And I held the phone in my hand thinking, do I call help and then this be another scandal? Because Hunter hated being this disappointment and black sheep to his family. That's what he thought that he was. And he felt like every time he turned around, there was another scandal. And he hated being that. And so I didn't want to call and it just be another scandal for Hunter. He lives through it and then he hates me because I called it in and he came to me because he trusted me. Or do I sit there with his life in my hands and take the possibility of him not making it through the night and regretting not making that phone call? And it's probably one of the worst nights of my life, but I'll never forget every minute of it. And
That sounds really scary.
It was very scary. And I can, even at one point, I remember when he first walked in, he had knocked on the door. Me and my friends were in the room. He'd knocked on the door. And when I opened it, he threw his drink in the air. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, I had startled him. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, you scared me. I was like, well, you knocked on the door. Did you not expect me to open it? And I could tell instantly he was, on edge and, not in a real great state. And I watched him walk in. He kind of staggered in. And that really wasn't like Hunter. He was very, especially in public and stuff, tried to be very well composed, incognito, would have a hat down. No one would be able to tell either who he was or the amount of drugs and alcohol that he had consumed. He would blend very well. And I watched him and my friends, I had a couple friends there and, they even watched him. One set up and she was scared. They'd been around him before, but he sits on the couch and he's mumbling, but like stuff that didn't make sense. And I'm watching him as I shut the door and he just slumps and he falls from the couch to the ground. And I run over and I grab his head and I've got it on my lap. And I'll never forget being able to see his heart through the side of his neck beating. And I thought, oh my goodness, it was so fast. And I was saying, let's get him some water, let's try to. And they're like, have you seen him like this before? And I'm trying to be the calm one, and I'm like, yeah, he's fine. Just go get him some water. And when I say that, my friend goes to get him some water and Hunter sits up at that time. It's like he comes to and he hits his head on this marble coffee table. But right before he hits his head, he says, waters of World War II. And then he's like back out. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is not good. And, I sit there with his head in my lap. I prayed. I even talk about praying in my champagne buzzed mind because, me and my friends been sitting there and drinking champagne, watching Friends, having a relaxing night. And then things just like immediately, turn for the worse. And you're sitting there not thinking, not having a care in the world. And now you're sitting there with someone's life in your hands and someone that you care about, someone that you love. And that's a battle that you can't fight for someone who's in that place. They have to fight their way out of it. And Hunter would always own his addiction. He would always say, this is my addiction. I'm the one who started it, and you can't make me quit it. I'll have to be the one to quit it when I'm ready, and I'm not ready. And my friends helped me get him into bed that night. And I sat there and I watched every breath. And every time a snore would come out, I can remember breathing a sigh of relief. But I kept my phone in my hands the entire night because I thought that I was going to have to make that call. And first thing, he woke up that morning and I was so happy because I felt like, the demon hadn't won. It hadn't, taken the life of someone that I truly loved and cared about. But I was surprised to see the demon did win because he woke up and the first thing he says is, where's my backpack? I need my Coke. And it wasn't a good morning, what happened last night, nothing. It was like instantly, that's what he needed. And, I'm trying to tell him, you scared the hell out of us. Like, what were you thinking? And he played it off, deflection, as if it was nothing, kind of like he'd smoked too many cigarettes type thing. And I remember my friend even said, Hunter, you said waters of World War II and then hit your head on the table and passed out. And he laughed and he said, well, at least I didn't say World War III, right? And then just, kind of goes to the bathroom like it's no big deal. It was, he tried to downplay it as much as he could because he knew at that point, I think, that we were scared that something had happened. But I truly believe that he doesn't remember anything from that night. He couldn't.
What year was this?
This would have been 2017.
So this was after his dad. So his dad was no longer vice president.
Right.
Trump was president.
Right.
Does he get Secret Service protection, or did he have that?
He didn't have any.
No, he just is out there. And how long into the relationship were you? Because the picture you're from Arkansas. Was it a big place you grew up, or a small place? Or
no, very small.
Small. So I'm kind of you're obviously smart. You're beautiful.
Oh,
it's kind of very much a country girl goes to the big city, and you see things that, yeah. You've never seen drugs before.
No.
So there's a naivety there. And older men are dazzling, right? And sophisticated.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How long into the relationship did you kind of get aware of like, whoa, there's a lot going on here that I'm like, have no idea about?
Let's see. That's tough because, with Hunter, when I was with him at first, it was, you don't see there's truly a lot going on. But like, a couple months in, I see like the tabloids come out that he's seeing Hallie. And, I had seen him a few times recently prior to that tabloid coming out. And I was like, well, that's odd. But I sent him a message and, I checked on him, making sure you're okay, because I knew he'd already let it be known in the short time that I'd known him that, he hated being a scandal to his family. And I knew this was just another one. And so I messaged him, and shortly after that, he wanted to get together, and he charmed his way into, it basically being something that, media's done and like some sort of, I wouldn't say conspiracy, but like a open relationship that had to, continue because of what media had said. And, I met Hallie and I'd been around her a couple times, but I truly believe that both of them, and I think someone had said that she claimed on the stand, that recently in the gun trial that she had been addicted to crack cocaine as well. And I didn't know if she had come out with that. So I tried to be very respectful in the book and not just come out and say that. But I talk about how they're in they were in a very dark place. I think both of them,
Yeah.
when they lost Bo. And it's as if they leaned on each other and then leaned on a certain coping mechanism. And then then there they are, and they've crossed that line, and there's no going back. And then they had to live with that guilt every day too, and it made that relationship very toxic. And there were plenty of times I had to sit there and mediate the both of them, and because they would argue about something crazy. She didn't trust Hunter, and Hunter was mad at her because she didn't trust him. And I think at that time, both of them just really needed to feel love, and that's not what they were getting from each other.
So I'm just going to clarify. Hallie is the widow of Beau Biden, who really sadly and tragically passed away. There's a lot of tragedy in this family. It's a lot. He becomes entangled with her, and the press gets wind of this. So they kind of need to present this as something that's positive. But he's dating you as well. Like, how does all that work?
So it's funny you say it's really not funny, but it is, because at the same time when I was telling these stories and trying to put everything together in chronological order and the way that things happened, one of my co-authors, she said, okay, I'm just really confused. Like, how do we describe this? Because like, I don't get it either. And I was like, it's just part of the Hunter package. I really don't know how to describe it. Hallie knew about me. I knew about Hallie. Like, I can remember when Hunter got his veneers put on his teeth, I had FaceTimed him that night to check on him. And I believe it was in New York or somewhere. And I FaceTimed him to check on it. And Hallie answered, she's like, hey, London, I'm trying to get him to wake up so, he can talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. And, like, cause he was out of it. He had had all this work done to his mouth, and, he was getting his rest, and they'd, I'm sure, given him, some sort of pain medicine to help with everything that he had been through that day. And he was resting. And I talked to him for like 1 or 2 minutes, and then Hallie got back on the phone and was like, how is everything? And I was like, oh, it's good. Like we didn't really know how to act around each other. It was different. It was weird. It was odd. And it's really hard to explain. I can remember at one time we were at on Chainbridge. Joe and Jill had a house that Hunter spent a lot of time after his divorce and before he started renting a couple houses in Annapolis. And I remember me and Hallie sitting there, and she kind of seemed like she was hurt when she said, Hunter trusts you. And I said, you think so? And she said, no, he does. I know he does. She said, he trusts you with things that he wouldn't trust a whole lot of people with, and he dang sure wouldn't trust me with. She said, and that's something, that's really special. And I could tell it, it was disheartening to her. It hurt her that, he trusted me like that. And I hated that for her. I mean, we got along, but at the same time, that he would be with Hallie and then he would come and be with me. And it was kind of an on and off again sort of relationship. And he had a way of charming it to make it seem as if the other one didn't exist. Yeah, I know. It's so difficult to explain.
Well, I want to say hindsight is, I in my 20s, I know that I was in relationships with men that it wasn't going to go anywhere, right? It wasn't, it was dysfunctional. When you're in it, it's not like I was living for the weekend. I was not thinking beyond the next month. I have been in, like, nobody's in a position to judge you, London. We have all been in our 20s. We've all dated inappropriate men. We've all loved people who have bring a lot of baggage, right? And we're all working through stuff. So, okay, so it was complicated.
Very, yes.
So what happens when you find out you're pregnant?
Oh, Lord. Well, it's actually pretty crazy. The way I found out was, my friend, we wake up one morning, it was after New Year's Eve. And we wake up, me and my friends, and it's like you said, living for the weekend. We were out, we were partying the night before, having a good time. And the next morning I wake up, one of my friends talks about, her period being late. And I think in my head, I think mine's late too. And I just kind of go on. And then we passed this like deli market in DC, and it's called Prego, Prego. And I thought, Was that a coincidence? Or, and then when I go to get out of the car, the seatbelt, my chest was sore. And I was like, guys, I was like, we're gonna have to stop at the CVS on the way back. Like the three coincidences in one day, like,
Mm.
and I started to kind of freak out, and they laughed, of course. They thought it was funny. And it's just me and my paranoia. I've been hanging out with Hunter too long, and I'm starting to get paranoid because Hunter had that sense of paranoia about him too that I talk
Mm.
about throughout the book. And so, I chop it up, it might be that. But, you know, I took a test and that day, and it was positive. And I remember thinking there's no way I can tell him, like, this can't be true. One, like, this can't be happening. Why would God do this to me? Why?
Mm. Mm.
And I remember thinking, I had spoke earlier about how Hunter felt like every time he turned around there was another scandal and he had let his family down. And immediately I felt like that. Immediately I felt like, here I am, like I've let him down in the biggest way possible, because here is a child out of wedlock. It's going to be another scandal for him. It had just come out about Hallie and them prior to, like, within a year, and this is just going to be bad. And I talk about how, I wasn't scared to tell Hunt, this man that I had grown to love and care for and be playful with and be myself around. But I was, the conspiracies and everything that surround politics, I was scared to tell Hunter Biden. And, the future is unknown. I'm from Arkansas. We have the Clintons, and, there's a lot of conspiracies, surrounding them. And so instantly, I was terrified. And honestly, before I told him, there's a story in the book I talk about. I contact a mutual friend, or a friend through a friend, and he had went to school with Obama, and he worked and close to the Obama and Biden administration when Obama was president. And so I called him, and I said, I really need to meet with you. And he said, well, just come by the office on lunch, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I was paranoid. And he said, okay, like, send me your address. I'll come out to you at lunch. Is everything okay? Now he's paranoid. And he comes, and I tell him, and I say, okay, because he has a couple children, but one of them's a daughter. And I said, I want you to be straight with me the way you would your daughter in this situation. He said, okay. And I said, that's the advice I want from you. And he said, okay. I said, knowing what you know politically, and as far as, law and the legal side, I said, I'm pregnant. And I just handed him a water, and he choked on it, and he coughed, and he said, oh my goodness. He's like, and I'm guessing the father is who I think it is. And I said, yes. And he said, well, at least it's not a Clinton. And we laughed, I said, oh my gosh. I said, well, I've heard all these conspiracies, and I'm terrified. Like, I don't know what to do. Both of my phones had crashed after I call and tell my sister I'm pregnant. Both of them just randomly crashed. I had one from Arkansas, AT&T, and one Sprint from DC, because I wasn't getting good service on my Arkansas one in this basement apartment that I was renting out. And after I call and tell my sister on the phone that I'm pregnant, I've got this going on, you can't tell anybody. A few hours later, both of my phones sitting face up just crash. And so I'm terrified, because you think, I've never been a conspiracy theorist. However, is this a coincidence? This happens right after I tell my sister? And if this is somebody that's protecting Hunter, how far will they go to protect him? And I was instantly just lived in this moment of fear that seemed to last forever. And he tells me, he says, you should be grateful it's a Biden. Bidens are all about family. They embrace family, and they embrace scandals, and any scandal that comes to their family, they'll embrace it. And that's what humanizes them. That's what America loves about them. And he gave me this big spill, and I was like, okay. And he gave me this pep talk. And then afterwards, I had a little bit of complications when it came to the pregnancy and stress. But they had put me on bed rest for a little bit, and then I finally get up the nerve to tell Hunter. And one of our mutual friends goes with me, and as moral support. And we laugh. I don't know if you ever watched the Friends TV show
Mm-hmm.
or a Friends
I'm
TV.
that generation. I watched it first time round.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I always say it is the way that I told him is just like how Rachel and Ross handled it. Because like I tell him, I'm like, hey Hunt, there's something I really need to tell you. And he's like, okay, yeah, what is it? What's going on? And I'd been avoiding him and he didn't know why, but he had checked through my other friends and they had tried to give him something. And I just found out my father was diagnosed with cancer at the time. So they told him that part, but they left out the part that I was also, avoidant because I was pregnant and didn't want to face him. And so I tell him, I said, I'm pregnant. And he's like, he just stops. And it's just like how Ross handled Rachel. It's like frozen in time. And he's just looking. I'm like, and it's yours. So I'm going to let you process that for a second. And I'm like sitting there and, a few seconds pass by. And he's like, honey, I know it's mine. And you know what? I'll respect whatever you decide to do as a woman. I'll be there for you mentally, financially, like go spiritually, emotionally. And he's so supportive in that moment. And my friend even walks out of the bathroom. She's like, so we're really doing this, Ross and Rachel? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what this was like, was Ross and Rachel. But he was very, very supportive in that moment. And, I even talk about in like the next couple times I've seen him after that, everything was more intimate, more passionate. And, I felt more love from him during those times solely because of the news that I'd given him. And then our relationship just seemed to fade away very quickly.
Okay. What year was this?
2018.
So by that point, Biden was beginning to talk about running for president, right? I think was
No, not yet.
no, not yet.
Not yet. This is January of 2018.
Okay.
And so, Hunter had told, close friends and us, we knew that that was most likely going to be the case. And we'd even asked him, like, what are you going to do? Because you can't do anything in this state. You can't be out in the spotlight in this, in this state that you're in. And he claimed that he was going to get these frog injections and that would make all his withdrawals and everything like just not exist, and he'd like be immediately fixed.
Okay.
From addiction.
Frog. Okay. Did you think from being pregnant and his reaction, like maybe this is the thing that'll sort him out? Like maybe he'll grow up, we'll be together, we'll raise the. Did you think that was possible?
I did, because at the time, like I said, I was why God, why are you doing this to me? And then I thought maybe because this is what Hunter needs. Maybe with this, Hunter will see that he's got to get it together, and he's got to do it because we have a baby coming. It wasn't until weeks later I had scheduled an ultrasound in Annapolis where he was for the heartbeat, and he was going to come with me. And that day I listened to our baby's heartbeat for the first time alone because he didn't show up. And I knew, a part of me knew then that he wasn't going to show up. And it kind of fades out from there. My anger kind of gets the best of me too. At one point, Hunter kind of spirals. So the baby that I thought was going to encourage him to get help kind of made him spiral even more than what had already happened and what he had already been doing. So, no, it kind of backfired on me. It didn't really, when I asked God why, and then he proceeds to spiral, now I'm like, God, like what is your plan here? And that's why I talk about through this book, I found my purpose. And I truly believe that God put me in this place because I was able to see Hunter during his darkest time, and I'm able to give him that grace. I'm also, Navy Jones' mother, I truly believe, for a reason. I have no doubts about that. And I can stand here and I can talk about, loving an addict and through everything and all the things that happened between us, giving grace, giving forgiveness, even if it's not asked for. And teaching my daughter those traits. That's a big part of it.
When did the press find out? When did that go public?
I'd reached out. I'd even went as far to donate to the Biden campaign and send a message through the Biden Foundation or campaign or whatever it was called, to let them know, like, please reach out. Like, this is something I don't want, to go public. I want to be on the same playing field. And I never received anything. And so my friend met with Hunter and found out that he told her, he said, well, how do I even know if the baby's mine? And I knew then that he was not going to take accountability. And so I filed a paternity suit. And it was within a month or two after I filed the paternity suit, the media found out about it. But at that time, it's just some woman that no one knows. And, she claims that this baby is Hunter Biden's. And this might be some way for her to get like 10 seconds of fame because, by filing this, there might not even be a baby that exists. People don't know. People don't know until there's a DNA test done.
Right. And you did the DNA test and he was the father.
Yes. I told my attorney in the beginning, he said, what do you want from this? Because there'll be child support, there'll be custody, and I said, listen, all I want from this is for him to take accountability. I want a DNA test done and I want him to own the truth. That's it. I don't care anything else. Like, that's in your hands because, I turned bitter during that time. And, in the book, you'll feel a lot of my rage and a lot of that bitterness that I had and I had for years. It's taken me a long time to let go of. But, it's like I said, I have to for my daughter's sake, if not mine. And it's difficult to do, but it's something. It's not my burden to bear. It's something that we have to let go of. And as long as Hunter took accountability, that's all. That's all I asked for. And I truly believed that after he had taken accountability and his family knew the truth, I truly believe they would step up.
That's the bit, right? Because I was listening to an interview you did with Meghan McCain, and the whole thing about the 6 grandchildren's stockings in the White House, and Navy wasn't included. Addiction affects families. There's a family dynamic. There's secrets. There's there's the politics on top of that.
Right.
It's kind of hard to reconcile that with. I'm thinking about Sarah Palin, and I'm not getting political here. Sarah Palin came on to see, no one's heard of her, and her 16-year-old daughter's pregnant, and it was just dealt with, right? It's just, this happens, not ideal, but we're going to love him, and we're going to love the baby, and we're just going to love, and we're going to support, and we're just going to, that's what we're going to do. And I don't remember that having an impact that, on, and that's, that was a conservative candidate. Why do you think they pretended you didn't exist?
That is something that I truly don't know. And I've truly never been able to understand myself. I don't know, because me and Megan had a talk after the whole interview, and she had brought up Sarah Palin's daughter, and she said, I can't imagine my father not saying, we embrace the child, we embrace the situation. Like, this is just something we just have to embrace and move forward. Children are a blessing. And I can't imagine them. She said, I can't imagine my father saying, we just won't acknowledge it. Just, put it to the side. Don't say anything about it. Just don't acknowledge it. And she said, I can't imagine that. And truly, I don't know. It's something I've never been able to understand, because I feel like, acknowledging a child and embracing a child is a feather in their cap. Like, it humanizes them. He has stood on the love that he has for his children and his grandchildren throughout all of his campaigns. So I don't know. I wasn't expecting a child to not be acknowledged, especially mine. And I talk about, they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but I promise you, hell hath no greater fury than a woman who feels like her baby's being scorned. And I've given as much grace and forgiveness, but there's there's so many times throughout the book that, I'm heartbroken for my daughter. I'm
Mm,
mad. I'm so mad for her because she didn't deserve it.
mm. Do you think things will be different now that Joe Biden isn't running? Do you and the spotlight has moved considerably already, but will definitely be moving after January?
I don't know. I don't know because, and I'll say that because it's like I said, you know, you could have embraced it
Mm,
and acknowledged a child, and it would have benefited you and your campaign and your presidency, and people would have understood that, I feel like. But what people
mm,
don't understand is why you don't acknowledge the child,
mm,
or why you go out of your way to exclude her
mm,
when she is a first grandchild and she is his blood, and it's sad.
mm,
It's very
mm.
sad.
My heart always goes to the kids, and I know you've had there's an agreement now, right? So that there is some financial support, and is Hunter being any kind of a father?
He started last year in September, making Zoom calls to Navy, and it was going to be, we sat down, I believe last June or July, for the first time since I was pregnant. And I told him, I was like, Hunter, I've hated you. I've had these horrible feelings towards you ever since. And we sat there in a room together for the first time, and we cried, we laughed. I was able to let a lot of things go that day. It was very overwhelming. It was definitely a healing that needed to happen. But I told my attorneys at one point, I was like, I could literally go in the corner right there and take a nap on that cement block. Like, that's how
Mm,
fatigued I am, how
mm,
tired I am and exhausted from all of this. But he wanted to build a relationship with her. And he said, there's all this toxic litigation around her has kept him from doing that. And
okay.
so he said, why don't we start with maybe a Zoom call a month? And she gets to pick out a painting, because he says the two most important things to him that got him through his darkest days are family and his art. And he said, that's a way, I'd be able to, bond with her, maybe, be able to start something with her that her and I both enjoy. And I agreed. Absolutely. It's like I've told plenty of people, any amount of money is worth a father's relationship with his daughter, or a daughter's relationship with her father, because I've had a very, very influential father in my life. And I don't want to keep her from having that. If he can be that to her, now he
Mm.
would have to step in and be that for her. But if he could, why would I keep her from having that?
I was raised as an only child of a single mother, and I understand what it's like to, to not have the father. I'm just thinking, you know, it, it would be so wonderful if she could visit Hunter and her grandfather at the White House, because that whole action is like,
Mhm.
you matter, you're special, you're like,
Right.
that's a story that she will remember for the rest of her life. And I wonder if the Biden family could find it in their heart to do that in the next few months, because it's not like, it's not, everyone
No, I
knows
know.
it's not like, what's the big deal, right?
Right.
That's not going to cost anyone anything, and it would, I think, mean a lot to your daughter when because she's like, how old is she now?
She'll be 6 next week.
Yeah, they're sweet and they're innocent and they're whatever, but when she becomes a teenager, that would be an important memory. I hope.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like, I believe that. There was a couple weeks ago, she saw Donald Trump on TV. She said, Mom, is that my grandfather? And I said, no, nope, that's not him. And I'm like looking for a remote, trying to get the news off, like, who turned the news on? And then it was so funny because she kind of saw him, and then it was just the other day she saw something else somewhere, and it had a Donald Trump on it, and she saw it, and I saw her looking at it, and I thought, oh my God, please do not ask me if that is your grandfather here at this place. Please, not again. And she goes, Mom, I don't think I'm ever going to get to meet my grandfather. And I said, you don't? She said, well, no, not if he's as busy as that man is, because that man's everywhere. I said, well, sis, that's because you're in Arkansas. I said, but let me tell you something. Regardless, If it's meant to be, it will be. If God has a purpose for you to meet your grandfather, then it'll happen. And if it doesn't, then there's something going on that God might have saved you from. Who
Mm.
knows? We don't know God's reasoning. And all we know is that everything and every moment that we're in, God has put us here for a reason. I said, so if it happens, it'll happen in God's timing. If it doesn't, it'll happen. It won't, because God didn't mean for it to happen, didn't want it to happen. She just kind of sit there and she shook her head and she said, Mom, you know who I really, really, really want to meet? And I said, who? And she said, my daddy. I just want to give him a big hug. And I
Yeah.
thought, she says things like that all the time. She prays for him every night when she lays her head down on the pillow. And that as a mother is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because, I've given so much grace during his addiction and during his darkest days, because I've seen that. I witnessed it, and I empathized for him during those times. But now if you're sober and you can be a dad to 4 other children, what's stopping you from this one that so yearns for his love so much? And babies need their dads, especially
Yeah.
little girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that why you write the book, and why now?
Well, it's kind of like I said earlier, I couldn't have sat here and had this conversation a year ago. um Hunter and I were just, that healing process was just taking place. And you'll read throughout the book this journey that I was on, and how I come to like such a dark place where I plan on taking my own life after the child's born, because I've become a burden to my family. And I've become a burden to Hunter. Now I'm a scandal, and I'm going to raise this child in Arkansas and never tell her who her father is. And so I felt like taking my life was the best thing to do after I had her, because,
Mm.
then she can grow up and live a normal life with my parents, and maybe it can be kept a secret, who knows, but she'll live a great life. And then you become a mother, and I realize that I'm protecting the wrong person. I'm protecting him because I empathized for him during that addiction and that hard
Mm.
time that he was going through. But now I'm a mother, and this is who I have to protect, and this is who I have to fight for. And
Mm.
I picked up the pieces off the ground, and it took a lot of prayers. It took a lot of mental strength and power to dig yourself out of a dark hole like that.
Mm.
It's sort of like addiction. Only you can bring yourself out of that time.
Mm.
And I had to, because I became a mother, and that's the sole purpose of this book. I dedicated it to Navy because I want her to know that despite what she's going to see someday, that's all public, where it seems as if she doesn't matter, I went above and beyond to show her that she is loved, and she has a
Mm.
mother that will stand 10 toes down, despite whatever narrative is against her,
Mm.
and is going to sit here and tell her story, because I truly believe that it can help women in unplanned pregnancies who go through such a lonely and dark time, or people that
Mm.
love and care for addicts. And you
Mm.
see that, and maybe feel that guilt for enabling that behavior, and then becoming a mother and it being the greatest blessing. I mean, she saved me, and
Mm.
my why God me turned into why God, how did I deserve this blessing that you've given me? I truly believe, I had a dream when I was pregnant before I found out Navy was a girl, and I talk about it in the book, and it was Bo.
Mm.
And he told me, he said, I just started apologizing to him. I'm so, so sorry. I'm so sorry, because, I felt like I was another Hunter scandal.
Mm.
And he tells me, don't be sorry. He said, you were chosen for this. He said, and, I've held her in my arms before you'll ever hold her in yours. And I instantly just wake up, and it was, pregnancy brain and everything else. And I just felt chills. And then it was within the next couple weeks, I find out it is a girl that I'm having, and Bo was right in the dream. And I think sometimes we have dreams like that for people to come by and just give us that little ounce of strength
Mm.
that we need to
Mm.
get through that
Mm.
time.
Mm.
And I needed some. I needed any ounce of strength I could get at that time. But I truly believe that it's a story that could help people in similar situations, and mental health, addiction,
Mm.
unplanned pregnancy, all the above, and motherhood.
Mm.
You staying at luxurious hotels and all the cocaine and drinking and partying, that might look like a luxurious life, but the greatest reward of all, and the greatest luxury of all is my daughter and being a mother. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah. I mean, thank you, London, for being so honest and vulnerable. And, I know addiction, and I believe Hunter's sober now. And I really commend him for that, and wish him all the luck in the
Absolutely.
world. And the thing is about when you get sober and you get your senses back, you get back to yourself, then you have to go and clean up your side of the street, and you have to take
Right.
responsibility and accountability. And I really hope that's where he's moving towards, because you deserve that, and Navy deserves that. So I want to
Thank
wish you
you.
the absolute, you're an impressive human being, and you
Thank
clearly
you.
are a warrior mother. And your
Thank you.
daughter, I'm sure she is an absolute delight to everybody who meets her. And I just want to wish you luck going forward, that you can, that this all can be reconciled,
I hope
and
so.
and that you can build a life with Navy, and that you deserve to be loved and cherished, and all that in the future as well, London.
Well, thank you. I truly appreciate that.
You're welcome. So people can find Out of the Shadows. It's on all everywhere you can buy books. What,
Mhm.
are you on Instagram or anything like that?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. London Town, LUNDEN Town.
Have you ever been to London?
I've not. I have not been to London.
Well, I think you would like it, and I think London would like you. So one point, take Navy when she's a little bit older, and you can show her all the castles and palaces and amazing
Oh,
shops and
she'd
all
love
that kind of
that.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
She
that'd be
would love
great.
that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, London. And I would love to know what you think of this episode. And please go out and support London and get her book and learn her story. And we will be back next week.